Good evening, everyone. How are you today? Good to have you back. We had the whole squad here today. Renee and Ebony, and I am Lorraine Edwards, the co-founder of A Single Mission, a business ministry that exists to empower single women to embrace their singleness, walk in their purpose, and prepare for the partner they desire. We are happy to have you here once again on our live. For those of you this is your first time watching, welcome. We thank you for joining us. We hope that you will appreciate and learn and also share with others in the single category. Other people can watch it too because we have Ebony on here sharing her words of wisdom. But we are jumping in today we're going into part 2 of the topic that we started last week, 7 things you should look for in the one. But before we do that, it's time for our check-in. Let me say there's something that I forgot to mention this season, actually, that we're still trying to impact 10,000 women. So when you follow your notes, it's a lot easier to remember all these things. We're still trying to impact 10,000 women this year. When I looked at the numbers earlier this week, of course, these are not individual people, and I have to look that up. But we've had over 5,000 views of our program, and we are excited about that. And so we appreciate you all joining and watching and sharing and commenting. We'd love for you to like, subscribe, share so that we can get our numbers up, which just means that we reach more people, not because of any vanity, but just so we can reach more people with the message that God has given us to share. So we're going to check in now. And what is our check-in for today, Ebony?
All right now. What trait in a date would cause you to eliminate them? You got a little alliteration or something going there, rhyming or something.
Yeah, I got some
What
rhymes
trait
going
in
on.
a date would cause you to eliminate them?
So, Renee, do you have an answer for that?
I do have an answer for that.
All right.
And I'm going to actually give you 2 answers. One is my young, immature self, and the other one is the Renee that you are looking at now.
Okay.
What trait in a date would cause you to eliminate someone, right? There was a time long ago where I went on a date. I was hooked up by a friend. I went out with this guy, and I was completely turned off by the fact that he decided to wear a blue and gray sweater vest with no shirt underneath, matching his high top shoes and his extremely long shorts.
Oh.
I questioned all of his life choices. And long story short, I never saw him again. That was when I was young and very superficial. So now I would say something in a date that would cause me not to go out with someone again is if I detect any unkindness. Like say we go out to eat, we go to a restaurant and he's unkind to the waiter or to the host or something like that. It's over. We're not, I don't do that. So that's mine.
No, that's cool.
Excellent.
That's cool. I probably agree with the first one too, but at the time, he's probably like a millionaire somewhere, G'd up. It was a test. So it's like you always gotta check. Is it a test or is it not a test? Ebony, do you have an answer to that? I know you've been married a long time, but nevertheless, I'm sure you probably got something.
Yeah, I'm with Renee. If a person is unkind to anyone, and that means that you eventually you're going to be unkind to me, and that's not going to work for me. I think also when I was dating, if the person talked about themselves the entire time that we were together, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. We would part ways probably before they intended us to.
Even before the end of the date?
Oh yeah, 100%. I rode quick.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is a waste of time.
I agree with both of those. And also, I think that I would add if they were um, cheap or not generous or give evidence that they were not generous. Of course, in different stages of your life, you may have different resources, obviously. But I also think you shouldn't be really trying to pursue somebody for real, if you can't even afford to take them on a date and then like tip and be generous in your tipping and all of those types of things as we go. It kind of says something to me about who you are versus if you don't have a lot of money, you can always have a date that doesn't cost money, but
Right.
it's still really beautiful and fun. So I don't like people who are not generous and so that to me is a trait that would be like, no, I can't live with that for the rest of my life.
Generosity is a spirit. It's not just the things.
Yeah.
It's a spirit. It's your character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted to just kind of go through the list that we started last week. If you haven't watched last week's episode, then you could probably just look over Renee's head and we will have the card there that you can click on and see last week's episode. But you don't need to see last week's episode now. You can just watch this and then go back because there's no particular order. So we talked about, 7 things you should look for in the one, and we talked about communication. So someone who listens, and even Renee, Ebony just talked about it just now. If they talk about themselves all the time, they don't listen to you, or they don't ask questions. They're not interested in your opinions. They're not interesting. So like when you have conversation with them, you're kind of bored because they don't have much to say. Renee, I don't know if you have something to add to this one. I'm just going to go quickly through all of these, but you weren't able to be. Now, why weren't you on here last week, Renee?
Because I was taking on a new role, and that new role is that of a grandmother. So I'm so excited about that. So yes, I was waiting on a baby last week, and we are ready to go right now. So
That is so cool.
Beautiful baby boy.
So communication, do you have any thoughts about the importance of that?
I actually think you guys did a really good job covering that last week, as it pertains to conversation as a whole. And please forgive me. Can we possibly go back to that at some point? Not necessarily go back, but if a thought comes to me, I'll add it. But you guys did a really good job covering that last. Thank you. You guys did a great job last week.
Cool. The next one was trust. And so we talked about them having like long-term friendships that would be an indicator that they are trustworthy, that they are actually specifically honest, that they honor their commitments, they admit when they're wrong, they keep their word. And you can just jump in here anytime that you want to, Renee. The next one was the affection. They do small things to be kind. You all both just talked about someone who's kind, just even on the date. They think of others. They're intentional about making you smile or making you happy. They learn your love language and they attend to that. And they reach for you. If you reach for them, they reach for you. They don't like pull back when you try to hug or hold their hands or touch or whatever. Now, we know that there are people who may have some traumas, and then those are things that you work through. If they can communicate that's where communication comes in.
Right.
To that. And these all really tie together. And they cover from everything that I've looked at and we've talked about. I've been talking about this for a while in a different context. But when we look at these things, when you have someone that has the balance, and as we said, no one's 100% in any of these categories, or not in all of these categories. They may be 100% in some. Then you really address so many of the issues that people bring into relationships. Because if you can communicate in a healthy way, even if you have a problem, then you can resolve that. If there's someone who's affectionate and kind, then though that relationship's going to be different than someone who lacks that. If they are affirming, the other thing was that, and they're trustworthy and they speak affirming words, they are genuine, they express empathy, they compliment. They are able to say thank you, sorry, and please, particularly sorry. Then these are all traits that are contribute to someone being a good match, because you can work out whatever issues, because they kind of all fall within one of these categories, and then you can navigate that. Versus if someone is a very poor communicator, it doesn't mean that you can't be with them, but it's something that you would definitely need to address pre-marriage
Yes.
and start navigating that. But if someone is willing to grow and learn, they know they're a poor communicator, then they can grow and do better in that area, or whatever area.
Mm-hmm.
I have something.
Go ahead.
What I hear you saying is that people need to date. They need to take time to get to know each other, because the length of time that you take in that dating process or collecting data, you're learning their communication style, whether they are good at that or not. And like everything that you just mentioned was all around communication, because you're talking about communication as a whole. I think last week, Ebony was talking about their ability to listen, to engage, to share, to be interested, and to be interesting, right? But you're also talking about, whether or not they're trustworthy. They are communicating that in their behavior. You're talking about whether or not they are affectionate, or they're able to express how they feel to you. All of those things are various types of communication. Mm-hmm. And you do want to learn those things on the front end before you get too serious, so that you can begin addressing those, saying, hey, these are my needs, and whatever diplomatic way you can let them know they're falling short in those particular areas. You guys have that, you continue to communicate, you express that, and you what you want in them is to know that when you express that, you're expressing it in a way where you feel safe. You want them to let you know that it's safe. You can tell me this, and they take that time and put forth that effort to take what you're saying into consideration and make whatever adjustments as needed.
Right. And just to kind of go back to the first episode, not of this section, but when we talked about 7 things you need to do to be more attractive, there were the same 7 things. And so it's about, you need to be working on yourself, and also understanding yourself, understanding what matters to you, understanding why it matters to you, understanding how to communicate, understanding how to be a good communicator. Like all of these things, if you struggle with affection, what can you do to improve that, as opposed to just pointing outward, which is why we started with that one. It's looking at yourself first. Mm-hmm. These are really important things. How do I rate myself in them, honestly? And you may need an accountability partner to help you with that, to say, you're not that affectionate, or you are a poor communicator, or quite frankly, you don't keep your commitments all of the time. You say you're going to do things, I love you, but you don't do them, and that bothers me. But if you can assess that yourself, it hurts less. But I'm like, word. Than having to be called out by your friends or whatever. And so really recognizing and evaluating yourself. So now we're going to go to the 5th one, which is your body. We talked about in the episode where we were assessing ourselves, taking care of our body. Now, we just had a discussion before we went live about what does that mean? What should be included in that? I talked about getting good sleep. It sounds silly and maybe basic and even irrelevant, but how many people know that when you don't get good sleep, you can be a real jerk? So when you think about someone who doesn't prioritize that, and we know the science is saying how important sleep is to every aspect of our life, to our health, to our brain, to how we think, to how our body, and all of those things. We're saying, what I'm saying when I say take care of your body is do the things, do whatever you can do to make your body healthy and the best that it can be. Now, what we're not talking about is, you have to be like a fashion model, or you have to, be like an Atlas weightlifter or whatever. I mean, if that's what you like, fine, then you go find that. But so eat well, exercise, lose weight if you want to.
Right.
But if it's also impeding on your health, then that is important in someone taking on that relationship, or you taking on the relationship with someone who has chronic health problems.
Mm-hmm.
And so looking at that honestly, because some people have different opinions about that, and they're just like, they don't even think about that, but then when you think about the cost of that, and just that your partner could, just die because of these health problems. Of course, you can always just die, but that's just life. But you understand what I'm saying. Renee, go ahead.
Oh, okay. In reference to that, I think it's really important that I'll speak for myself. I do want someone who cares for themselves, who cares for their body. I mean, for the Adventist folks out there, we grew up on, I'll do my honest part and care for my body. You know what I mean? But I don't know that we've ever really talked about that, broke that down. Maybe we did, but I forgot. But nonetheless, caring for my body simply says that I do care about my health. I am going to be mindful about what I eat. I may not exercise every day, but what I'm not going to do is literally be sedentary. You know what I mean? I am going to get up moving to some degree. Caring for my body, or wanting someone who cares for their body, that speaks to me, right? Because when the Bible says you love your neighbors as yourself, well, in this case, I'm your neighbor, right? And I want to know the same way that you care for you are also going to care for me.
Mm-hmm.
You encourage and motivate yourself to eat right, to read, to watch the news, to stay up. I mean, this is my body, my mind, my everything, right? When you do that for you, you're more inclined. I believe you're more inclined to, again, do that for me. Renee, I want you to be informed. Renee, I want you to wear a raincoat. Renee, I want you to eat healthy. Renee, I'm going for a walk. Do you want to join me? You know what I mean? Like, it's a partnership. And again, when you are loving you, it sends the message to me that if you are expressing interest in me, then you are going to love me that way as well.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really good point.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great perspective.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great perspective, 100%. It's like, I mean, you do what you can do, and you do what's in your control to do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just the long and short of it. I mean, to your point, life happens and things happen that are beyond our control, and it is our responsibility to be a good steward of our bodies and to set a good example for those around us and those we come in contact with to care for our bodies, to care for our temples, and to be diligent about that.
Mm-hmm.
And it also says, I think, Lorraine, you just touched on this too, is that when you're caring for you care about our future, right? If we're trying to go forward. And by you caring for you are lightening the burden for me.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You are lessening the chances of you taking on or having certain health risks.
Mm-hmm.
It very well may happen, but you're doing what you can to keep yourself healthy. And when you're healthy, then we can live healthily together. When you are not showing care for yourself in that way, now, if I have fallen in love with you and I care about you like that, now I have to put forth a little more effort to care for you in ways that I may not have to if you
Mm-hmm.
do things a little bit different.
Right.
Because I love you, I may be willing, but I shouldn't necessarily have to if that's preventable.
Right. I think that, I've heard, many women talk about how their husbands won't go to the doctor, or they won't take their medicine like they're supposed to, or they won't, and they're like constantly having to navigate that, or make them do it, or try to push them, or encourage, or just, or be stressed about it because it's not happening. And I think this is one of those things that is really practical, but that we totally like neglect when we are dating or whatever. Like the reality of that,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And so what I'm not saying is, if you find out that your boyfriend has diabetes, you'd be like, peace out, bro. I ain't got time for that. That's not what I'm saying. But think about the fact that if you knew, you know, something, that there is something you can do to make your situation better, your health better, and you decide that you're not going to do it because it's too hard, or you know, requires discipline. We've all done this, you know. We may do it at a lesser scale, maybe not as dangerous. We may have health problems, but we got other issues, and we're just like, nah, I know that if I did that, I would be better, but I am not going to do it because I prefer to do this. A lot of that can carry over into other areas of life too. And so when we are just, we're not eliminating people, but we're saying, we're being honest about what we want and what matters to us. Because even if you marry someone with a obvious disability, you're like, I love this person, I met them, they're great. That's beautiful. But you also, you are clear on the challenges that are going to come with that. Versus if someone just doesn't take care of themselves, you are not as clear. You might think, oh, well, they just have to prick their finger and they just gotta, they can't eat this. But you are not as clear always on what goes into if something worse happens, you know? And, you know, this just came to my mind, and, you know, my father had diabetes, and he ended up having a lot of complications from that. And then he ended up having his leg partially amputated. Well, that changes the game. He's passed away now, well, a long time ago, but that changes the game. And they were older. My parents were in their 60s at the time. So my mother now, as a 60 something year old woman, is taking care of her husband who has had his leg amputated. That's, of course, you say in sickness and in health, that's part of the deal. And I definitely don't believe that you need to be abandoning ship, but you have to be aware of what those challenges are. And then you go forward there, being clear on what matters to you and not trying to change someone later. That's the other part of this whole thing. You be like, oh, it doesn't matter to me. He can do. And then when you get married, you're just like, well, you shouldn't. And you, he's like, yo, I was doing this before and you knew that. So now why are you trying to change me? Be clear on what matters to you. Go ahead. Someone else.
I mean, period. I don't know really what else to add to that. I mean, it's just, it is, you know, it is a responsibility. It is the responsible thing to do, to take care of yourself, you know? I mean, that's just the long and short of it, you know? My husband and I have been married for 25 years. Both of us have some health challenges that, mine for sure, the bulk of mine for sure are preventable. And the reason why I am now being very diligent about remediating those things, is because I don't want him to have to care for me, you know? And so that's just a long short. It's unfair. It's unfair for me to just do whatever and not be sensitive to the fact that this could become his life as a caregiver to his wife. And I won't say that's not what he signed up for, because my husband will do whatever, you know, to take care of me and to take care of his family. But that wasn't on his radar, to have to take care of his wife. So
From that perspective. And then also that just our body's a temple of the Holy Spirit. And that's the ultimate and for us to be kind of casual about that is not really okay. Time, that he gives you his time, that he budgets, that he manages his time. That's a serious situation when someone is unbalanced in that area, because what tends to happen is the wife and the family are the ones who lose out on that imbalance most of the time. Very few people are like, well, I'm not going to go to work because I need to spend time with my family. They will work late because they don't want to lose their job, or they have a career, or they have a business or whatever. So is he giving you consistent time in his life? Does he prioritize you?
And time isn't minutes and hours, right?
Okay.
Time is substantive, because you can be in the same space with a person for hours and there be no substantive connection.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just about, well, I came over your house last night, or I called you last night, but yeah, you was on your phone the whole time, or you were talking about yourself the whole time, or whatever. But if you leave from time, as you can tell, it's a pet peeve of mine.
Yeah. Did you
But
talk
when
to
you
someone today who was just talking about
Yes, girl,
this?
'cause listen, when I tell you at this point in my life, I do not get down like that. I will cut folks off in a minute. I am not interested in that. Anywho, stay focused. Um, if you leave from that time together and you still feel disconnected, or you still feel lonely, then that was not time. That person was just taking up space.
Right.
Just taking up space. Good evening, Colleen.
Hey,
Thank you
Colleen.
Hi,
for being
Colleen.
back.
Hey, Susan.
Blessings to you as well. So this is something that is kind of important to me, because I really don't like being busy. I've been busy, and I'm busy now because I'm trying to build something. I really don't have anything else to do, but but this. So
Okay.
there's that. But I think that you all need to really be on the same page with even that concept of busyness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because for some people, that busyness means status. It means like they doing something and they really about their business and all of that. And for you, it might mean like that's just annoying and it takes time away from. I believe in relaxing, and I believe in having fun, and I believe in taking vacations, and I believe in all that. But you with someone who doesn't really buy into that, or they don't feel like they can, and they don't have a mindset of that, that can be a constant battle in the home.
Yeah.
A constant battle.
Yep.
And so what is quality time to you versus that person? What does that look like?
I want to add something there. Like when it comes to time, I love the word that you used, which is balance, right? Because again, we're talking about 7 things we're looking for in the person that we're dating. Well, we're dating for the purpose of marriage, right? So we're really looking for 7 traits in our husband, right? That we want in our husband. And when it comes to time, you want somebody who's able to look forward into that and recognize that does involve a balance. That's a balance of you, because we want him to have his time and to care about himself and have his mental space to do what he wants to do, with his interests, his friends, his family. We're older now, so when we're dating, they might have kids. You know what I mean?
Hey, we older now.
Okay, who are you talking about?
That's because you're a grandmother. Yeah, we old.
But no, they might have, a reality is that when we begin dating, they might have kids, right? So we're balancing yourself, your interests, with your friends, your children, your family. Now you've added me, so it's me, and I have a child and now a grandbaby. And there are so many things that now require your time. So you want somebody who can figure out how to balance all that.
Right.
I'm not mad at you if you have a hobby that takes a lot of your attention, but I don't want to feel slighted by your hobby. I don't want to think that your hobby is
Right.
priority in your life. You know what I mean? Or your children are priority. Because this is one thing that I have learned over the course of time, though, is that when a man, we're grown, we have children, right?
Yeah.
And we're back out here in the dating world. What I have learned and what I believe is that when you get the right woman and you love that woman is going to make sure that you are loving your children. So if you think, oh, well, my kids come first, if you're with her, she's going to make sure that your children are still priority. Your children will not miss out on anything.
Right.
You know what I mean? So again, I'm just talking about the balance, him being able to look forward and realize that there are a lot of things that you have to balance. And then throughout your dating, courtship, or whatever, you can see how he handles these things.
Yeah.
I want
agree.
offer a married in the future perspective to that. I agree with you completely, Renee, on all of that. I have shifted from using the word balance to harmony.
Okay.
Because I don't believe that it's balance. To me is
like equal.
If there's some equality that's going to happen. And that in my experience, that generally doesn't happen. Because there's always going to be something that's going to need a higher priority, particularly when you introduce, God blesses, you introduce children into the situation. Children are always going to have at some point some higher need. And so the goal, in my opinion, is to create some level of harmony. And that harmony looks like everybody understanding their place, meaning everybody understanding that they have a place and they have import and that they are valued and loved, and also understanding that the needs of one might at some point surpass the other, but that doesn't lessen who you are, it doesn't lessen your importance, it doesn't lessen our love for you. And so there is excuse me, there is a spirit of harmony that runs through the family because everybody understands what's going on. Everybody feels psychologically safe. Everybody feels seen. And so it's less likely for someone in the family to feel neglect if they understand that the ultimate goal is for everyone to have their place and everybody to be loved and respected. And at some point, it's going to be your time because that's the way life happens. At some point, it's going to be a need for you to be the priority in the family, and just understanding that. Because sometimes when you think, well, oh my gosh, I got to juggle all these things, I got to balance all these things, that's flat out stress.
Okay.
I agree with that.
So
I agree.
I try to think about it that way.
I would add that I think that your wife and your husband have to always be the priority.
Yes.
But it doesn't mean that they always get the most time. Because when that becomes unbalanced in a sense, inharmonious, then the children take priority or the work takes priority. And that to me causes problems.
Yeah.
Because when the Bible says that you are to leave your father and mother and cleave, it doesn't tell you to cleave to anyone else but your husband or your wife. So that cleaving means that relationship, other than obviously our relationship to God, that relationship is number one. It doesn't mean that you get to be first every time in every situation, because like you said, if you have a child, the baby's got to be taken care of, and all of these, you still have to go to work, you still have to do all these things. But when we see couples that have healthy empty nest syndrome. It's because they
Yes.
prioritize that
Yes.
relationship all the way through.
Yes.
So when the children leave and things have changed, they're still friends, they're still in love, they're ready to do the next thing together.
Mm-hmm.
Versus when that priority isn't placed there at the beginning and kept there, then I'm off doing this and you're off doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And now the children are gone and we don't even know each other. And, work has more of my time and attention. And I will sacrifice, our anniversary or even our trip because something happens at work versus it's just like, no, y'all got to figure that out. So that to me is like when we talk about priority, we talk about time in the sense of who has the priority in your life as well, and that should be your partner. And even when you're dating, because we're talking about that process, when you're dating, he's not cleaving to you yet, but he's demonstrating you as a priority. If he makes a commitment to you, if he says we're going to do this, then that's what you're going to do. And not his friend can't call and be like, yo, dude, did you hear that this is happening? And he's like, oh, okay, well, I gotta go. See, I'll talk to you. We could do that later. Or if he keeps putting you off so that he could do something else, that's just a foretaste of what you're going to experience as a wife. Because once he really has you, then he's really not going to feel like you're always going to be there. So he can do this other thing before he attends to you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yeah. The next final thing is spirituality. We talked the first time that there are, we have with people that are Christians watching, obviously, but then we're going to have people that may not be Christians who are watching now or will watch in the future. And so we kind of shared some thoughts around both of those things. So I believe spirituality is a part of everyone. It's not just a Christian thing or a religious thing. So I talked about those same things and how we relate to God: communication, trust, affection, words, body, time, and also in community with each other, helping other people, volunteering, meditating, journaling, spending time in nature, working on your hobby, things that build your spirituality, your spirit person, if you will, that strengthens your connection with people, your community, your selflessness. That's kind of what I mean around someone who you all are on the same page with spiritually. And particularly if you're a Christian, and if you happen to be of a particular denominational persuasion, then you want someone to be on that same page. Because, I mean, let's just be straight up. If you're a Seventh-day Adventist and you're watching this at some point, you need to be married to someone who's also a Seventh-day Adventist, because the challenges that come when you don't, and I'm not saying he just is a Seventh-day Adventist. We already went over the other 6 things that you need to be looking at. So don't anybody be sending me messages that, well, there are bad guys in the church. Well, yeah, they not on this list then. Like, right. So we already went through the list, but you need to be on the same page, because the challenges that you will face, you have no concept of what that is going to look like. And until you get in, and then you've made the commitment, and then you got to try to work that out. You have no idea the challenges that you will face when you try to be in a marriage with someone who is not on the same page with you spiritually, whatever that is. If you're an atheist, don't try to marry a Christian. Like, y'all aren't on the same page. Mm-hmm. You are not on the same page. This is not just about a denomination. This is about a belief system. Mm-hmm. And when that belief system drives how you live, you need to be with someone who has that same belief system, who resonates with that level of spirituality, because they have a guide, a master, a God, whatever, that directs their life. And if you don't have that, y'all are going to be out of sync a lot.
Yep. That is true. And no matter how much you think that, you know, you can make it work or whatever, it's a challenge. And I say this as someone who is living in this space, has lived in this space. It is a challenge, you know, and it and the challenges pop up in places that you just wouldn't think they would.
Mm-hmm.
And so that belief system, and to Lorraine's point, it goes beyond a religion. You know, it really is, what do you believe about, you know, the important spiritual things, you know, having that conversation. You know, are we going to go to church together? Are we going to pray together? Are we going to worship together? What we gonna do when we have kids? You know, are we gonna send our kids to private school or public school? Like all of the things. You know, that is a belief system more than it is a denomination, and you want to have those questions answered um, before you get married.
Mm-hmm. I remember that I was dating someone a few years ago, and he was a Christian, and we, I really liked him, and he really liked me, and things were going really well. And I asked him, we were, I think a couple of months probably into the relationship, and it really doesn't take me long to kind of know if I like someone, want to keep going. It usually takes me like one or two conversations to know if I want to keep going. So the fact that we had made it this far it was fairly significant. and and I asked him, every like almost every conversation, he would tell me that he was praying for me, like he would pray for me every day and all of this. And so at some point when we were kind of at that trying to figure, I was at the point where I'm trying to figure out, is this a real thing that I'm going to, keep going or not? I asked him about us praying together, and we got a few minutes left. And I asked him, could we pray together? And I always laugh when I tell y'all, when I relay what he said to me. He said that he was going to pray about that. He's going to pray about us praying together. And so in my mind, I was kind of caught off guard. That's not what I expected him to say, because I expected him to think it was a good idea, because he always talked about praying for me. And I was like, why don't you pray with me? Because then we can get God's guidance together about this relationship. And so I was caught off guard when he said it. And in my mind, I'm just like, so what do you think God is going to say? Nah, man, don't pray.
Right.
It's like,
right.
I felt like God would be in a box there. Like he'd be like stuck in the corner. Like, what do I say, Jesus? I don't know. So, but I was trying to be like open-minded, because my friends think I just dump people just without any real consideration. So
that's another episode.
That's another episode. So I said, so I was just like, okay, well, pray about that and get back to me. Well, he did not get back to me. And I gave him several weeks, not like a couple of days, because I didn't think it would take long, but I still gave him time. And he never got back to me. Colleen thinks that's hilarious. I thought it was hilarious too, Colleen. And he never got back to me. So then I was just like, okay, well, now I need to follow up. Because again, not trying to just dump him unilaterally. And I asked him, did he pray about it? And he said, this is funny too. He's like, oh, I forgot.
Wait a minute. Wait, did you know this part?
Don't remember. Y'all know this. I told y'all this.
I must have blocked that out.
Right, me too. What?
He said he forgot to pray about it. And so then I was just like, oh, okay, I see the handwriting on the wall right here. But then he said he was going to pray about it again, or he said again that he was going to pray about it.
Oh, right.
Because he
Since
had
Right.
actually done it the first time.
And so this time I gave him less time, and there was no like follow up, no coming back. Like, so then I was just like, okay, this is not going to work. Well, some people might think, oh, that's silly, whatever. It doesn't. Are you kidding? Like, for real though. Like,
That's
if
big.
you cannot pray with the person that you're married to or going to be married to, if you have nothing else, if everything else is lost and you can't even pray together, you are lost.
And it's different from your significant saying, I have, that's not something that I'm used to. I don't really know how to pray publicly, or that's different. That's different from not being able to pray together, or somebody telling you that they're gonna pray about praying. I mean, huh? Where they do that at? Because why not? I mean, is we gonna pray or not? Like, why is that even a thing? I mean, yeah. So that is it, to me. That is different. That is completely different.
Yeah. And I think that speaks to just being on the same page. I remember one of our friends telling a story about when the other woman was getting married, and you who've been married, all of the stress that comes with that. And they were trying to pick dresses, and everybody was kind of giving their opinion, and she was kind of just getting stressed out. And her fiance came, and he pulled her out, and he was just like, he hugged her, and he was like, let's pray. And he prayed for her right there. It was like outside a store, like a bridal store or whatever. And he prayed for her. And I was just so moved by that story. And I mean, I know them, so I know is, very true. But I'm just like, that's what you want. When we talked about the episode of submitting to your husband, how are you going to submit to someone who won't even pray with you? Even if they like Ebony said, have challenges, they can communicate that to
Right.
you.
Yep.
And say, I've never done that before. I've never had a girlfriend ask for that before. I'm willing for us to try it. Prayer is like, it is intimate and it can be uncomfortable. But if you don't do it now, you surely not, it's going to be that much harder. And so, and the fact that you said you're going to pray about it, then you didn't pray about it, was kind of a telling situation for me.
Not just didn't, you said you forgot.
Even if you prayed and said, God, she's asking me to do something that I've never done before, I'm not used to, God would give you the spirit to do that and the words to communicate that, but you just didn't do anything. But the whole thing is like praying for your children, praying for your marriage, praying for your family, praying for God's blessing, praying for purpose, like that's what guides you. And if you are guided and led by God and he isn't, then you just gonna be in a really terrible stuck situation. So Renee, do you have any final thoughts or anything on that?
I mean, I have a thought pertaining to the story that you just shared. He said in the very beginning that he said he was praying for you. Like, if you're praying for me on a regular basis,
how you forget?
How did you forget that? Yeah. So anyway.
Yeah. All of that.
Yeah. So are you asking me if I have anything like in general as we wrap it up?
Yeah. As we wrap it up.
Yeah. I think that we covered between last episode and this one, I think we covered some really good information. The one that came to mind from listening to the last episode, I think Ebony spoke on it also, was talking about being self-aware. Like you were saying that there was a character flaw that you recognize that may have, stemmed from your childhood. I mean, everything doesn't necessarily have to be so deep. It's those simple things, like we said, just being able to say, you know what, I was wrong for that. Or this is something that I need to work on. For me, I think it's really important for us to look for people who are self-aware, who can acknowledge what something is. And like I said, make those adjustments as needed.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that they are making sure that they're bringing their best selves to the table. And the last thing that I'll say is that I wasn't in the episode about our 7 things, but I'm not asking for anything I'm not willing to give.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Totally agree, which is why we started with that. Like, you need to really get yourself. And for many people, they want what they aren't.
Yes.
And
100%.
that's just not fair.
Yep.
You know, to demand this, and that's the struggle to get that, because the one that you are looking for is not looking for you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Colleen is hilarious. She got the 5 women running. She's like, get up out of there.
I ain't mad at her.
Totally with you.
Yes.
Totally with you. So the scripture is the same. I'm just going to bring that from last week, James 3, verse 13. Who is wise and understanding among you? Let him show by good conduct that his works are done in the meekness of wisdom. And when we're looking for that person, obviously we're going to be praying. If we're Christians, we're going to be seeking God's direction. But we need to have a plan too. We need to understand what we need to be looking for, and not just kind of be like, oh, well, when he shows up, I'm going to know. Well, how are you going to know if you don't know what you should be looking for and what's important? And when I pull these 7 things, I pull them really when I look at the 10 commandments and how God loves us. This is the foundation of everything that I teach and everything that I talk about now. How does God love us? God is the model. Mm-hmm. And everybody has their little special features, but the model is this. So if you're looking for the model, you need to be that and look for that. And then all them other little things that we think are important or we like or whatever, that's fine. If he's tall, some people like short, some people like this, that, whatever. That's all good. But what's the model? If he's not looking like Jesus, or his direction is not looking like Jesus, as we said, you're not going to be 100% in all of these things, but you are wanting to grow and learn, and you're self-aware, and you are seeking to have the character of Christ, then you have a winning combination there. Let them show by their good conduct. It's not just about words. It's totally not about words. It's about what are they doing? How are they demonstrating? And when you can see that, then you know you are in a safe place. So next week, it's going to be a different program. I'm actually going to share my testimony about waiting. And not waiting, I'm going to talk about it in the context of, as we talk to single women here, waiting for a partner. Most of the people watching are going to be in that category. Not everyone, but most. You're waiting for that special someone. You're waiting for God to bring a husband or wife. But I'm going to talk about it in the context of what has been going on in my life in the last 6 months, waiting for something else. And it's going to be pretty raw and ugly, and everything that happened wasn't pretty, and everything I did wasn't right, and all of that. But God, the Holy Spirit, told me essentially through a sermon that I was watching that your trials and your test are not for you just to be like, oh, God brought me out. How many times we hear people share their testimony after they're way past the situation? Like, I used to be a drug addict. I used to be, and it's just like, no, I'm actually still in the fire right now, trying to work things. But God is like opening up and showing me things and showing how he was guiding me in like big ways and small ways that I could not have seen, but I wasn't feeling it. So I want to share that testimony because they said share it in public, share it for people to hear it, share it for people to know. And this is the most public I can get right now. So y'all get to hear my testimony, learning to wait well, next week. And so I hope that you will share. I hope you will join for that and be here live. And it will just be me and the Holy Spirit and y'all. So thank you all for joining. Please like, share, subscribe, all of those things. Please comment. Please send this to someone. If you have topics that you want to talk about, email support@asinglemission.com. We want to build and grow and just get better and better. We thank you for sticking with us a little bit longer. And until next time, make choices that will help you live, love, and marry wiser. God bless.
Bye, y'all.